Good morning. This is Talking Devils, the leading independent Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by United legend Paul Parker, Dave Murphy, to talk over preview Manchester United versus Arsenal. The Premier League begins. Feels like just 2 minutes ago we were sifting through week after week of disappointment, and it's back already. Is it the John Cleese in Clockwise? I don't know if anyone's ever seen that film, but you'll be familiar with the quote. It's "I can take the despair, it's the hope I can't stand," which is sums up how we all feel, I think, about Manchester United. So we drew 1-1 against Fiorentina on the weekend. David De Gea's return to Old Trafford. Nice presentation to him before the match. Won the Snapdragon Cup on penalties. This is after we won the Premier League Summer Series Cup. 2 trophies in the bag. So already things are looking good, aren't they? All the signings were unveiled on Saturday, as well as the new one, Benjamin, and I know how to pronounce this now, Šeško. So if you just imagine, you look at Benjamin Sesko, and then you imagine that you're Sean Connery, that's how you pronounce his name. And I'm pretty sure it's also Carlos Baleba. We'll be talking about him in a short while as well. Okay, lots to talk about. Dave, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. And for me, it's Sesko. I'm not going to remember to talk like Sean Connery, so I'll be good.
Okay, Paul, it's Šeško. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. And I'm happy to go down that Sean Connery route, to be perfectly honest. Unlike the person just before me, I'm willing to give it a go.
Yeah, well, you don't call him Dave or something like that. His name is Dave. So you got to go the extra mile to make sure you know how to pronounce his name. That's what we do on this podcast.
I'll go with Benny.
You go with Benny. Benjamin, yeah. Dave, always the over-familiar type. I mean, Mbermo is the other one. I'm pretty sure that's right now. Mbermo, that's how I'll be saying it out. It'll be said on the first day of the season, and I will have got it wrong. It'll be fine because I'm in Old Trafford. I don't know. I'll just be going, oh, Mbermo played well. And then afterwards, I'll watch the highlights and I go, that's not how you say his name. Okay, so on the back of this amount of money that's been spent, around £200 million, United were linked with 2 more transfers. Is it Gianluigi Donnarumma? Is that Gianluca Donnarumma from Paris, the Paris goalkeeper? Year left on his contract. I thought it was a bluff all summer, but then Paris went and signed this new goalkeeper for £40 million, so he's going to be playing. Donnarumma's got phone for leaving on free transfers. He did it with Milan to Paris in the first place. His wage demands will be a big issue, but the stumbling block of his fee, believed to be around £30 million last week, is something that we even saying £25 million this weekend. So it seemed like a bad transfer. But the bigger news was of Carlos Baleba, the Brighton midfielder, who was just done brilliantly over 2 years down there. So far as to say that maybe even the terms have been agreed on a 5-year deal before United have made an inquiry that's supposed to be going in like imminently to test Brighton's resolve on it. We know that Brighton are going to be asking 3 figures for him. That's what they do with the midfielders these days as a starting negotiation. And they have, I think there's a percentage that they owe to his former club, you know what I mean? So there's increments like that. So they're going to be wanting to extract as much money as they can. It's Brighton, of course they do. Paul, it follows the strategy of United's transfer strategy this summer, apart from Šeško, of course. There's, Cunha and Mbermo brought in from the Premier League. We did touch on it a little bit last week, but it's more concrete this week. He's definitely emerged as United's primary target in that position. Whether or not they can get the deal done is another matter. But would you say he's the right man for the job? Do you think, considering the qualities that he's got? I know we did touch on it last week, but it's worth going down that line again to talk about him.
What I've seen of him, yes, I quite like him. I saw him twice last season. I'm actually at Brighton next Saturday as well. So I'm presuming at this moment in time he's going to be playing in that game. But I do, the way he plays, he has definitely got something about him when on the ball. He's very strong, predominantly left-footed, and makes the game look very, very easy, the way he plays. But a player come to my mind I thought would would suit at this moment, and everyone knows about him, and he's proved himself in the Premier League, was Douglas Luiz.
Yeah,
he's someone who I quite liked when he was at Villa, and just someone who's very calm. And the only person who's there, there's two players who are calm at United when they play midfield, and they're not phased when they have the ball, and that is Casemiro and Mainu. They're the two that play the game with ease and never rushed. And I can understand on the side of with a Casemiro, but then you worry about a Mainu. How is his progression going to go? What's going to happen there? Are they quite? I don't know. I've seen us very similar in the way they play, except obviously, he isn't Cobb. He's not as quick with. He's not a runner of the ball. He's a very good runner of the ball, and he's a lot quicker without the ball as well. Moves off the line quicker, I should say. So then as well, there's the issue again as what you look at what's going to happen between midfield and the front three. Well, if you're going to talk about your best team, what is your best team with that front three? I think we know the front three, don't we?
Well, I would imagine, considering the players that we brought in, the money that's been spent, I'd be very surprised if those three players are on the front three.
Well, they have to be. I mean, it looks that way when you talk about a forward line. He makes it kind of, in a way, there'll be a few people getting excited about it, what they might see after what happened last season. The biggest concern will be, for me, in the middle of midfield. If you're going to go and bring in someone, all of a sudden you're bringing in the lad from Brighton, and you're bringing in someone who's quite disciplined in the way he plays. But then there's a player who has been Manchester United's saver on numerous occasions, who's very undisciplined in that role in the centre of midfield.
Yeah.
So the manager is virtually putting himself under a bit of pressure by bringing in a player who costs a substantial amount of money. And then all of a sudden he's got to figure out how he's going to work his midfield out to fit the captain in.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point for sure. I mean, that's one of the issues that's been over the summer, right? Where you're going to play Fernandes. There's even been talk. I mean, so some people messing around this morning with a, change of system, like obviously you put maybe the qualities of different people necessitate the change in formation. Sometimes you play a formation because you don't have the players with qualities to do the other ones, even though that doesn't make much sense based on last season. The fact that we've got players to suit the old formations or the traditional 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 that most clubs play in England. Well, we didn't play that. We played a formation that sort of went against what we've got in reserve, really. So I think Fernandes is one of the big keys with this. Not so much that he's not going to play, but more to do with the qualities that he's got and the fact that, in that midfield, even at Sporting, you didn't have a player like Fernandes. And maybe this isn't a criticism of Fernandes, because he's got so many great qualities, and sometimes you make accommodations for a player of that. We've talked before about the maverick quality that he's got, and the likes of, I'm going back, even though I'm not comparing them, but I'm comparing the trait that they had. Ryan Giggs would try things off the cuff. That's what we've got with Bruno. However, in a two-man midfield, especially in a two-man midfield in the Premier League these days, a player who does that is, I'm not going to say a liability, but you've got to be very good around him to be able, and he's got to be better in possession than what he is, and he's not. You've mentioned the two players there that are really comfortable. Baleba is definitely a player who brings that kind of quality. He's definitely calm, but then you do look, Dave, it's not just the players that Paul mentioned. It's Agate you're a big fan of. The other players like Toby Collier, who will definitely be moving on. There were reports linking him with a move to Sheffield Wednesday on loan this morning. Where do you stand on this? I mean, there's one obvious thing there are three obvious points of conversation, right? The first one is he's a great player and an upgrade. You would think theoretically. I mean, we wanted Fred to be the kind of player that he is. You can see how beautiful he is on the ball and how Premier League proven he is already. The second point is the quality that we've already got, or the bodies that we've already got in that area. It means that they're not even really the players that have been talked about moving on, are they? It's the likes of, all those midfielders like Casemiro and Agate. They're saying that they're going to be sticking around. And then the third one is, where's that money coming from? Because it was all right a few seasons ago. We all got excited when we signed Casemiro and Antony, but we're paying the price for that now in a certain way. Some people might not think that, considering we've already spent £200 million this summer. And I gave you a lot. in a long-winded way there, Davo. Are you excited by Baleba? Do you think that you're along the same lines as Paul, that there are reservations considering the players that we've already got?
Well, I think with hindsight, with the 3 players that we brought in, are we top heavy now? In other words, like, I know we had to move fast on Cunha at the beginning of the transfer window, because he had a set price. But with hindsight now, with the other 2 forwards we brought in, would it have been better to move Bruno into that position and spend that money on Baleba? That's my thinking here, because I'm just a little bit concerned if we don't bring in a midfielder. I've said it numerous times that my biggest concern is our goalkeeper. I think we need to sort that out right away.
Hey, come on.
But in regard to our...
I've not asked you about the goalkeeper. We'll talk about the goalkeeper in a bit. I'm talking about Baleba. Tunnel vision.
It was just a side comment. With our midfield, I personally think we've got it wrong. I just think we rushed in and bought 3 frontline players when we possibly only needed 2. We definitely needed a striker, but I think if we could roll back the clock, I'm not sure whether we would have brought Cunha in if we knew Baleba was available and the budget that we have. He's a fantastic player. I think we're misusing Kobe Mainu. I'm just not sure why the manager can't get a position out of him. I really don't. He's a fantastic player. But as Paul said, he's not one that drives forward, but he is very, very, very easy on the ball. I'd even put him up there ahead of Casemiro in that sense, in regard to how calm he is and how he makes things just look so easy. But with Fernandes in midfield, it's square pegs, round holes at the moment. And I would definitely... for me, I think we rushed in and brought in Cunha. Now that we have those other 2 strikers as well, because where's Fernandes going to play? I think as the season goes on, we're gonna figure out that this is just not going to work. Fernandes is just not the midfielder that we want him to be. Albeit, he's the only one in the team that does things that no other player can do and no other player tries. I get that, but I think he's better further up the field, and I think that money could have been spent more wisely, in my opinion.
There was the talk of 100-odd million being put on the table for Fernandes, and the talk of that being revisited next summer. And considering the profile of players that United are looking at bringing in and the players that they've already got, you would think that that's probably a natural time. But then again, if you're Fernandes, you're like, if things go as they're supposed to go this season for United, in United's perspective, then why would he want to leave when you're getting closer to the objective of what he wants to achieve there? There is that.
I'm sorry. The other thing as well is, they United could be looking at that as well as Cunha being the replacement for Fernandes next summer as well. I'd be surprised if we get another year out of Fernandes, to be honest. I think we'll get this season out of him, and then he'll be moved on, probably for that 100 million or so. So bringing Cunha in was probably with that in the back of his mind of, well, this time next year we're going to have a problem. But I just believe that the front 3. I'm excited about the front 3, but when you have a limited budget, it could have been spent more wisely, I think. I'm a little bit surprised we went out and bought 3 strikers. I really am.
Yeah, but I was with that. I think of like United's historical attitude to stuff is that they always just went top heavy with stuff. When United scored loads of goals in Fergie's last season. Comment on Johnny's comment here. He says Bruno isn't good in centre midfield. I agree with Dave. He should be further up. Go back to Fergie's last season. Scoring goals wasn't a problem. Rooney and Welbeck were in great form. They're in great partnership. And then he went and brought in Robin van Persie. Do you know what I mean? When I think it goes back to the Busby era, he didn't think United had problems with their attackers, but then they went and signed someone like Dennis Lowe. They've always historically done that. They've gone out and bought a striker when. United needed goals last season. They needed creativity and they needed goals. So the amount of strikers, I'm not concerned too much. And great point here by Johnny. In 1999, we had 4 superb forwards, and they were also after Clivert as well. On top of that, it wasn't. They would have moved on Andy Cole if they'd have brought Clivert in, but it wasn't like if we'd have brought in Dwight York, we weren't looking to get Clivert. They were looking for the both of them, so they were really top heavy then. And yeah, so it goes to speak to that. I'm excited about all those players coming in. I can see. Obviously, we have no idea what's going to happen with Benjamin Šeško. I mean, this is the knock-on thing from this is the situation with Rasmus Hojlund, and we did have a little bit of a brief talk about this last week, but now it's confirmed again. Paul, one of the things that we talked about or briefly mentioned was that it feels a little bit unfair. Not unfair, but you feel a little bit sorry for Hojlund that he's a United fan. That's not really anything to go by because better players than him have been United fans and not failed and not done well at United. But there was a player there in the first season. He scored goals in the Champions League. He's very much a player who thrives on confidence and service, like every striker does. And we didn't have strikers we didn't have wide players who gave him service last season. We had a very selfish front line. Now we are getting that, and he's going to be. He's not going to be first choice. In fact, he probably looks like being third choice, maybe even fourth choice, if you think that Obi should deserve some first team minutes. But he says Xerxes will probably, even though he's not a prolific number 9 in the same vein at all, but he'll probably be ahead of the pecking order in the pecking order than Hojlund. And there's all this talk this week has been of Milan coming in. United have set a fee of £40 million that they want for him. Milan have put in an offer with an option to buy for 30 or 35, an option, not an obligation. United would prefer a permanent sale because I don't see an upside to him going on an option, considering that they've got the option to pull out of that, and we've seen how that works for United. But I do feel a little bit sorry for him that he's not going to benefit from all that creativity that's around him. Then again, I look at him and say he's had 2 years. It's a ruthless ground for, what I mean? Sometimes confidence and momentum, you can't get it back. Do you know what I mean? Just because he didn't have confidence and didn't have the players around him, he should still have done better. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of moving parts in there. And it is, I think it's just a sad reality that his ceiling isn't as high as we need it to be. And really, in this situation, Šeško's going to start. He's going to be the primary starter. He's going to be getting most of those chances. Hojlund would have to be something way above what he's already been in order to justify keeping him around, right? I mean, that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think people, if anyone's going to argue a case for him, they will say that he deserves the opportunity to play with maybe Acuna and Bueno, the opportunity to have those two around him, two good runners with and without the ball. And they're two very unselfish players as well. So that they'll say that will happen. But like you say, he's had 2 years and it hasn't worked out. Gone out and spent a hell of a lot of money now on a striker who's been mentioned in the UK for just over 2 seasons now. He's been mentioned, and he's going to be used. He's going to be utilised more than him. And I think maybe for his own sanity, and we can talk about the love of a club and whatever goes with it. And you can't be, for sentimental reasons, you can't use that as an excuse to keep someone on.
Yeah.
For his own sake, I think he has to go. He knows Italy from his time at Atalanta. I think, if anything, he's got an opportunity to go to a great old Italian club with great history and go and start again. It's not bad, is it, really, that you can leave Manchester United and go to Milan and maybe just go and start there. And if it's on loan, then you just never know. If he can find his feet again and maybe go and work on what he missed out before, then he's got to go and grab it. He's got to go and grab it. Maybe go and have those 12 months 9.5 months of a football season to go and start again in somewhere where he earned the right to play for Manchester United.
Dave, what do you make of the Hojlund situation?
Yeah, I mean, it is a tricky one, all right. In one sense, you're fearful that now that he can get the service, and we've seen in his first season when he does get the service, he's a pretty good striker. But last season was horrendous. He played with his back to the goal for most of the season. It was bizarre that he actually changed it. Whether he was told to play that way or not, I'm not sure. But he definitely changed the way he was playing. And it was pretty obvious, especially after the turn of the new year, that I don't think people were confident at giving him the ball. There was a lot of opportunities where players could have passed him across the ball. And to your point, Ryan, he has had opportunities and he has missed numerous chances. But again, it comes down to confidence, doesn't it? It is a tough one to call, because I like the guy, and like I said, his first season was really good for someone coming into the Premier League. He just didn't kick on from there, and some way down to his own fault. He's the one that has to end up finishing. But this whole, loaning a player out with no obligation, I mean, that we've seen it with Sancho and all. It's just ridiculous. If someone wants our player on loan, it has to be with an obligation to buy, because then we can use that budget as well as money that's really in the bank. I'd love to see him go back to, if he's going to leave United, I'd love to see him go back to Italy. And AC Milan's an absolutely massive club. As Paul said, it's not too bad that you come to the Premier League and, let's be honest, he's flopped. And then a club like AC Milan still wants you. And he's proven in Italy that he can score goals and might be the best. Like, he's only 22, so I do feel for the guy. Like I said, I do like him. He hasn't been like some of our other players that have dropped. He just got on with it. He really has. You can see he's disappointed. You can see he wants to do well. I think it's best for everyone if he gets that move to AC Milan. It's just that whole thing of with an option to buy. But United could gain from that as well. He goes to Milan, he bangs 20 goals in, he's full of confidence. We don't have to sell him to Milan then, and we bring him back. There's two sides to it really, but I don't think sitting on the bench looking for opportunities throughout the season, because even if Šeško doesn't play well, we're going to persevere with him, aren't we? Because it's his first season. We are going to persevere with him. So I think it's best for all parties if he does get that move to Milan.
Plus, as well, Dave, there's a young boy coming from Arsenal, Obi.
Yeah.
So he's left Arsenal, and the reason why he left Arsenal because he didn't believe he was going to get the opportunity.
Yeah.
So now you can't go and disappoint someone like him at a young age by all of a sudden he's suddenly gone from being maybe behind Hojlund last season and kind of saying to himself, I'm not getting a lot, but I've only just arrived, and you accept that. Now he's done a whole summer. And then he's looking at the situation. He understands that another striker's been brought in, and he'll appreciate that, but respect that reason and the quality of the player that's come in. But to sit in third spot now, you could lose him in his head. He's already once kind of turned around and said to Arsenal, no, he's travelled. Now he might start feeling a little bit embarrassed by what he's gone and done, and he could suddenly just go into a shell. So he needs to believe that if he's going to be on the bench and if there's going to be a change up front, he's the one who's going to come on, then he's going to get some games in the League Cup as well. So that's the other side of it. You've got to look for the other side of what's the knock-on effect if Hojlund stays. All of a sudden, you could lose mentally a young player that you just brought into the club. And even, we all know that United are very much about young players coming through. And yes, he come through at Arsenal, but still, he's a young player and you don't want to disappoint. And if he gets his opportunity, doesn't take it, you put your hand up and go, didn't work out. But when he hasn't had a chance and you're putting him further back in the queue, I think that's a problem. So I believe that Hojlund has to go, and I hope he does go for sanity's sake.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you on the Obi thing. Absolutely. The other thing to say is that a point which you both made there is that I think it was stressed earlier down the line, wasn't it, that there was less margin for failure at United now, and 2 years is long enough, and you don't want to end up in a situation where you've got Martial and he's around for 6 or 7 years and you just can't give him away at the end of it. Do you know what I mean? And ends up going to a Greek club, and United are in that position now with Sancho. They're in exactly that same position now. Cannot give him away at the moment. We've a comment here just from John. If we would sign Baleba, what are the thoughts on a realistic finishing position? I'll buy. I'm not letting the other ones go, so I'm going to move on. We'll finish top. We'll win the league. But we've got to get that goalkeeper situation sorted out, because if we don't, I'll lose my sanity just based on Dave chirping in my ear about it. Even though I agree with Dave's point of view, I'm just not there he's not the answer to every question. Like, what would you like for breakfast today, Dave? we've
A
got to
better
get rid of the goalkeeper first. Okay. Well, there's some pictures online about Garnacho having a vape when he's getting a tattoo. I'm mentioning this just to say it's mentioned. I'm not going to put this to the panel because I don't want to talk about the players. Apart, we did Hojlund there because it's in the news and Milan have put an offer in. But there's Antony, there's Sancho, Garnacho, all these players that could be moving on. Malacia as well. We'll talk about them when they go, if and when they go. And then if they don't go, we'll talk about the situation that the club have put themselves in. I just don't want to do it now. I don't think it's good to comment just on the back. There are enough places doing it. We know it doesn't look good. I don't think it looks good. I'm not going to get into it right now. Anyway, so we'll talk about United versus Arsenal. That's Premier League opener. I want to talk, first of all, before talking about the game itself, the spend. United have spent 200 million. Arsenal have spent a lot of money. City have spent money. Liverpool have spent a hell of a lot of money. Chelsea, of course, have done the same. So we say, like, United want to, like John was asking there, where United goes up, right? Where they go up from here. Are they going to win the league or anything like that? Well, that's me joking about with that. The realistic scenario is, are they good enough to get back into the Champions League, which now is 5 spots in the league? So that's a quarter of the league table. Quarter of the league table qualifies for the Champions League. If you can't tell how preposterous I think that is. Anyway,
it's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. So a quarter of the league can now qualify for the Champions League. United, having spent so much, accumulating to that, you've got to also. People are saying they can't improve from 15th. Well, they weren't 15th bad really the year before. They won the cup. You know what I mean? They were just outside the Champions League. We did qualify for the Champions League a couple of seasons. We had a good squad. It just fell off, and it was badly coached, and everything was badly run, and the morale was terrible, and everything like that. The skeleton structure of everything is much better than what it appeared to be last season. Confidence says a lot. So United, relatively speaking, I think should be challenging for the Champions League spots. I think that they should be in there. I think if you add in Baleba and you add in Donnarumma, you add in more than that. But then you do look at the likes of Arsenal who've spent so much money. They brought in Gyökeres, they brought in Zubimendi, they brought in other players as well. Paul, I'll start with you on we're talking about expectations of clubs. This is a big clash really of clubs both clubs have spent a lot of money. Arsenal's still upset that they've not. Arsenal fans are still upset that they've not spent as much as they would have liked, but they've spent a hell of a lot of money in order to progress. So it's all very well saying, "Oh well, United should be challenging for the league now," but Arsenal, and I know this. I know because Liverpool have strengthened with £400 million of where they were, so they're champions. So you've got to say that they're favourites. So Arsenal, it's not just as easy as saying, well, they should be winning the league now. They've spent so much, but that's how it works in terms of expectation, right? So, what do you reckon to the level of expectation that's around United and Arsenal, really, as we go into the first game of the season?
Well, I'll go more with the Arsenal one. If you're a person who I live, as you know already, I live in a very dominant West Ham area. West Ham are the league club in this area by a country mile, bigger than a country mile, followed by Tottenham and Arsenal, in a lot smaller degree. But I must say, if you're wanting anything idiotic, or anything like that, you go to an Arsenal fan. They're living in this incredible world. I've just seen Arteta is the master of it. He's the one who leads it. All of a sudden, he wants the tunnel canopy taken away so the roar of their crowd can frighten opponents. I don't know how long this tunnel is, but I'm telling you what, it doesn't go from one side of the pitch to the other. The players do get there. And to be honest, you can't hear the roar of the crowd when you're in a library. It's just incredible what goes, all these stupid things that he keeps coming out and saying. Yeah. And it's annoying a lot of, and there's quite a few embarrassed Arsenal players. They're Arsenal players, fans. Their social media side, it just puts out. Honestly, I believe in their heads they've won 10 Champions Leagues. The way they talk. So this game, everything now is geared towards, the way they're talking, as if like they're going away to play Torquay United. It's an easy game. The game's already won. You know, we should be beating sides like Manchester United and going to Old Trafford, and you know, and it's just some of them just there's no respect, and I don't know if it's a younger element. So when I look at that game, I'm saying it is that game is everything that Manchester United have been over recent years. They will lift themselves incredibly and play well in that game. I don't think there's any doubt about it. They'll be ready for it. First game of the season. If you're not ready for the first game of the season, you shouldn't be there. Everyone is that buzz, everything that goes as a player. You're walking out and look at me, and you just want it that much as a player. So I'm expecting that everyone's going to want to play, especially the new boys when they come in. That's why it's always good to make those kind of signings, because as much as those players get a buzz, it's the fans. For the first home game of the season, there's going to be a different buzz when those 3 lads walk out on that pitch. Hopefully it's maybe 5 new lads walk out on the pitch. But with Arsenal, they're expected to win in their own heads. They're expected to win comfortably. And I know United will compete, and generally they go and win these kind of games. United's problem over the season is going to beat the other teams, the Brentfords, the Nottingham Forest, those kind of teams, where before the great United sides beat those sides home and away. It was simple. It was simple as that. So this game is going to be tough, but everything is on Arsenal. That's the difference in this fixture at Old Trafford. Everything was on Arsenal because they'll be talking about how many times they've finished second. He's gone and spent more than Arsene Wenger as well. But he's gone and got players who are all geared towards dead ball situations. So that's what they've got to work on. They've got to make sure that they don't get caught up in all this dead ball situation, because that is the bit that got Arsenal where they were, got them out of jail, because in general play they wasn't very good. But there's going to be a vast improvement because they've gone and got some decent midfield players.
Yeah, Stoke City, Dave, at the weekend. United versus Stoke City. But with the point Paul's making there, I don't know if I share that confidence. Maybe because I'm just not. I think last season beat it out of me, even with the new slate of a new season, everything like that. But you've got 2 managers who rely so heavily on systems. Amorim, to a fault, on occasion last season. Arteta to a fault, although to his benefit as well last season. But maybe the first game of the season, all these new players coming in, maybe that plays into United's hands. There's going to be a little bit more chaotic than what either manager would like. You know, new season, the unpredictable, all these new players in, finding the feet. You know what I mean? It'll make it a difficult match to see that there's going to be any good rhythm. You're not going to really see a lot of that. Well, I wouldn't have thought so. But it plays more into United's hands that it's going to be less predictable. I think so anyway. That's me trying to get the optimism that I can. It feels like that. I'm not saying that Arsenal won't come and turn us over. I just feel like with that unpredictability, that is a quality in United's favour. How are you feeling ahead of the game?
Yeah, it's a weird one because many of the points that you've said is, you know, the biggest one for me is that we've got 2 teams that have huge expectations for this season, 2 teams that have spent a hell of a lot of money, and I 100% agree with you. I think it's going to be a little bit chaotic because it's been a while. You know, I can't even remember where we had two top teams playing each other right at the start of the season that had a heavy turnover in regard to transfers. So we all know that it takes time for players to bed in, and these 2 teams are going to be expected to win. Both sides are going to be expected to win. United at home, Arsenal away. Arsenal, you know, finishing way above United in the league last year, have massive expectations, as Paul said. You know, they behave like they're an elite club up there with Real Madrid. It's actually hilarious. It is the way they behave at times. That doesn't say that, you know, I think Arsenal as a squad have a very good squad, but their Achilles heel is their manager. I really believe he's not up to the task. I mean, some of the things that he does and says and the way he reacts, it's just, it gives the players too much. They're overconfident and that's their Achilles heel. It's like, you know, it comes from the stands all the way down. It's going to be a really, really interesting game because like we said, there's going to be I mean, what, 7, 8 new players are going to be appearing over both teams. It is going to be a little bit chaotic. No matter how many preseason games you play, it means nothing, in regard to the intensity and stuff like that. To a Premier League game, I'm really looking forward to the opening weekend, and I'm looking forward to this game because I don't think anyone could predict it right now. United's home form is abysmal. It has been for some time. That said, they seem to, with the exception of like when Liverpool absolutely thumped us last season, United didn't do too bad. In the Arsenal game, I believe last season we should have won it. But I'm looking forward to it because I do think there's not going to be much of a rhythm in it. But Arsenal, I think what's going to affect Arsenal the most is their overconfidence and their arrogance. I think as Paul said, they're coming to play Torquay United, and it's a no game for them in their head. Because of our form and finishing 15. Last season is last season. It's done. It's past. It's going to be very interesting. It is. It really is. It's a bit of a unique opener to the season, like I said, with so many new players coming in, two top sides. So interesting to see how both sides play. I have watched a little bit of Arsenal's highlights. They are a little bit clunky as well. Yeah, they really are. So very, very interesting game to open the season. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. The thing for me with Arsenal at the moment is that overconfidence, the fact that but they are a good side. They do well on set pieces. That they might be overconfident, but there's some substance there. But you mentioned the chaoticness of reference to what I said there. I go back to a couple of years ago. We played them when Casemiro and Anthony had just signed, and I know Casemiro, I don't think he started in that game, but Anthony scored against Arsenal. United won. They got him on the counter attack. That was exactly the same kind of scenario, really, that Arsenal came into the game just thinking that they were going to wipe the floor with us, and United turned them over that day. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. A very quick one before we close. A bit of a shorter pod today. Clean slate, guys. I'm going to ask you both for your predictions on where you think United will finish this season. And you can use whatever qualifier you want. If it's from this point on, if it's with the idea that we're going to sign players and move players on, just your opinion on where United are going to finish the season before we've kicked a ball. Paul, what are your ambitions for United this season?
I'm gonna say top 8.
Okay.
Can I say that?
Yeah.
You allow me that? Yeah.
I think it's a bit pessimistic, but I can understand why.
That's what I think. I think top 8, and I think, to be honest, I think a lot of people would go with that as well. In my humble opinion, I don't want to say finish in the top 10. That means like kind of top half. That's not right when you talk about Manchester United finish in the top half.
Yeah.
I just think it doesn't sound right.
A trophy in there as well, Paul?
Anything can happen. Just throw in an FA Cup.
Throw in an FA Cup. Why not throw in an FA Cup? Davo, your expectations this season?
If it remains the same with the team that we have right now, I don't think we'll finish any higher than 6th or 7th. I really don't. I think we'll do well, but I don't think we'll break the top 4 with this current team. If we get a goalkeeper and a midfielder, I think top 4 is a big possibility. It really, really is. We're not a bad team. We have a really good defense. It's just that lack of confidence in our number one that, as Paul said last weekend, just causes chaos in the defense. And it'll go back to the Ozzy Ardiles days with Spurs when he managed the Spurs. He had to score 5 because he conceded 4 because he was so attack minded. But if it's the current team, I agree with Paul. I don't see us anywhere not even in the top 6, which is horrendous. But if we do bring Baleba and we get it, a goalkeeper in, I think top 4 is definitely achievable.
Yeah, Dave's a Baleba.
A Baleba, and his name is easy to say, so I'm happy. Don't have to pretend I'm eating sweets when I'm saying it. Sure.
Shaken, not stirred there, Dave Murphy. Right, so just a couple of things to close on. I mentioned about Paul's book last week. I'm going to give you another plug. Link in the description for signed copies. We're also working on possibly getting a launch event sometime in September in Manchester. So stay close for that. We'll give you information hopefully on next week's pod or the pod the week after that. And Paul, I don't know if you know this, but it's the anniversary of your first ever game at Old Trafford in 1991. It was a game that was a Matt Busby testimonial the week before the season started. Played the Republic of Ireland 11 there, and before the game, that's Paul's little moment. But before the game, because it was Busby's testimonial, I love this story. I told it on the morning pod. If you listen to us on the morning pod, the daily one, that Busby watched it. He watched it. It was a 5-a-side, or maybe 7-a-side, where they put the goals a little bit in.
Yeah,
and the
I remember that game.
side. So it was like George Best, Bobby Charlton all playing, and Best scored a goal where he hit the goalkeeper. It was a City Legends side. Don't mean the goalkeeper rolled it in, and Busby came out with this line, and it's just one of my favourite lines in United history. It says, "My mind was somewhere out in space, waltzing with my heart." I just think like football. He's not that serious, right? You know, it's not serious enough to evoke poetic lines. It's the most serious of the least serious things. But I do like that it brings things like that. I love that kind of like evocation of poetry. Like, oh, that's the way that he felt. He was so connected to it. And to watch, Best, Lowe and Charlton dance around on the pitch for one more time, Best score a goal like that. It's just a great line. And Busby obviously came out with many zingers, as the the youngsters would say these days. I don't think they would say them back in the day. But he came out with some great lines, and that was definitely one of them. Anyway, that's us for this week. Hopefully, we'll be back. Everyone was feeling a little bit more positive than I was this week about getting a result against Arsenal. So I'll be banking on that. And hopefully, we'll be back next week talking about positive starts to the season. And finally, ending Dave's headache about a goalkeeper, because good grief, we could all do with that, couldn't we? Thanks for listening, guys. If you've enjoyed the pod, if you can give us a subscription or review on the platform you're listening on, we'll be back next week, and have a great week.